got another guest. Two more guests.
On we go, Mark.
On we go. Yes. Yeah. This is like a home game for me. This is a session that I really enjoyed. 2024 election policy issues.
Yeah.
So living outside of Washington D.C.
Yeah.
You want to introduce us to our guests?
Yeah. So we've got a couple of guests from ADVI, and full disclosure, I'm actually on the board at ADVI and enjoy that relationship very much. But we've got with us today Sarah Butler, who's our Chief Commercial Officer, as well as Lindsay Greenleaf, who heads up consulting in a lot of the government affairs.
Great. Well, welcome.
Great, thanks for having us.
So tell us about what brought you to the conference, obviously the session, and tell us about it. How did you think it went, and what are some of the key points?
Yeah, great. Asembia is one of the regular conferences that I attend. I love coming to see old friends, colleagues, and we've had a great amount of customer meetings. So we've been meeting with clients. Our team stacked up, great agenda for us. Also, Lindsay and I had a panel this afternoon with two other colleagues. As you said, we focused on the upcoming election, the current status of the Inflation Reduction Act and what that means for manufacturers, payers, providers, and patients. And actually got pretty wonky there for a few minutes on implications for drug pricing.
Sure there was lots of attention, right?
Yeah.
That's a hot topic. Right?
It was, and it was well attended. It was kind of funny, though. People were a little hesitant to ask questions in front of the big group. And then afterwards, it was like, whoosh, we were swarmed with people coming up and saying, I couldn't ask this in front of a payer. But so it was great.
Yeah, good. Your thoughts?
Yes. We got wonky pretty quickly, which, that's just what we do. Talking at a high level on the Inflation Reduction Act doesn't really do it justice.
Sure.
But we talked about the new incentives that manufacturers are thinking about with their R&D planning. We have this new incentive now that they're going to favor biologics over small molecules, just given the time frame that you have before government negotiated price might apply. Biologics at 13 years, small molecules at 9 years. Talked about rare diseases, how there's this really narrow carve out that is resulting in manufacturers not looking at expanded indications for their currently marketed rare disease products. They want to keep that exemption.
And Lindsay, that's because if they have more than one rare indication, they become susceptible to the negotiation process.
Yes.
Is that right?
Basically, Congress said, we consider you to be a rare disease drug that deserves a carve-out if you have one orphan designation and your FDA indication or indications plural, if that is for the same one rare disease. It all has to match.
Okay.
God forbid you try to help more patients
Wow,
and get additional FDA indications for other diseases.
That's back to my motto from our last episode, no good deed goes unabused.
Yeah,
That's right.
that is true.
We talked about how Alnylam, they're the only company that we've seen on record speaking about this publicly. They have a product on the market, Amvuttra. They were looking for a second rare disease, looking at Stargardt disease, pediatric blindness. They halted their clinical trials because they knew they would lose their exclusion from government negotiation, and they were explicit about that. And people on the Hill, folks on the Hill, are paying attention to that. Do we have a fix yet? No. There's lobbying efforts underway to try to get that expanded. So we talked about that. Biologics, rare diseases. We talked about the new incentives to launch your most profitable indications first.
Yeah.
That's a weird one.
They delay time to market,
That's right.
and which isn't great for patients.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially, oncology comes to mind, often launching smaller population first. Now you need to sit back and wait because you got a short window.
Oncology, a lot of times the early studies historically have been in late stage disease.
Yeah.
Do you think that will change possibly with this change in the incentives?
It's something we talked about on the panel, actually.
Because the larger market is more upstream typically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that they will wait to pursue the largest indication longer. But the other thing we talked about is the importance of NCCN and Compendia, and especially in oncology, and being able to have an evidence generation strategy that focuses on using those channels as a way to get access if you don't want to take the time to pursue all of those other indications, given that your clock is already ticking when it comes to Medicare negotiations.
This is sounding like a list of unintended consequences.
Well,
we said
that list is getting
those
it's getting a very long list.
What other hot topics were there?
Well, if I could, some of the hot topics focused on patient access and affordability. What were some of the things that related to the election and the policy? what are some of the things that people, our listeners,
Yeah.
should be aware of?
I'll give a positive one maybe. We talked about Part D redesign and how in 2025 the out-of-pocket cap, which will be $2,000,
Yeah.
will go into effect. That's a big deal for a lot of seniors. Like today, you go over $7,000 and then you hit the donut hole and you've got a whole other challenging situation. $2,000 is still a lot of money for many patients, but it's a significant improvement. And Lindsay and I have been joking how this will be the first time that the out-of-pocket limit will not be an election issue. So we've kind of got that one solved.
That's
Also,
nice.
from an access and affordability issue, I think the piece we've talked a lot about is the 10 drugs that are being negotiated right now. So many of those conversations with CMS are just focusing on price. They're not focused on access. And we don't know what access will look like. We don't know if they'll get put on like a 5th tier and have 4 step edits or whatever it will look like. And so a lot of our clients are coming to us saying, what is this going to look like in the commercial market as well? So
Well, we've seen some conjecture actually to that point that because these products now will have rebates, that they may actually, they don't fit the high price, high rebate model, and so they may actually be disadvantaged.
exactly.
Is
So-
that something you've heard about, or?
Yes, and that's something that our payer advisors expect to happen.
Wow.
I have a prediction. I think might happen. And when it does, I think that's going to be a real tipping point on PBMs and PBM reform actually making its way through Congress. I mean, we have some PBM reforms that are under debate right now. The big business model changing, things like delinking compensation from a drug's price, things like that might not happen in the short term. The transparency efforts that Congress is talking about right now, maybe in lame duck, we'll have something there. But in 2026, when we have Part D drugs subject to a negotiated price, if Democrats on the Hill hear that we have government negotiation now, all of our problems are solved. If they hear that patients are not able to access those drugs, that out-of-pocket costs or step edits, whatever it is, utilization management, if they hear that, I think that is really going to cause a sea change for Democrats to suddenly realize, okay, I think we need to take a closer look at PBMs. Maybe it's time for more disruptive changes there.
And not to mention what a disservice for the patients as well.
Oh,
Absolutely.
so from your perspective, then, if we could just sort of, are there other things you liked about the conference that you caught your eye? Interesting companies, interesting conversations. Like, what's your sort of perspective on the conference?
I love this conference. It's just such an efficient way to meet with so many different people and different companies. And for us, as consultants, it's great to have so many different conversations and we can start and kind of hear what the themes are that are boiling up. There is quite a bit of focus on what a Trump administration could look like.
Okay.
Definitely a lot of focus on IRA and the commercial spillover, as we mentioned. And then this year, I've actually seen more startups walking around Asembia. Historically, it was mainly large companies, and I've met with a few founders and seen quite a few walking around. So to me, that signals that this conference is getting bigger and broader in terms of who participates and comes here to, meet with others and get engaged.
Yeah.
The conversations with the smaller companies is most notable to me, because same thing. We've had these conversations about the Inflation Reduction Act, which look way back. Before it was the Inflation Reduction Act, it was Build Back Better, HR 3. This idea that government price controls were coming. When talking to some of the smaller companies in the past, they were like, yeah, I've got other things to worry about. This isn't coming for me anytime soon. I'm going to worry about that later. I think we're at a place now where everybody realizes this law is coming for everyone. By 2031, we'll have 100 drugs subject to a negotiated price. By 2036, 200 drugs. Any drug that has spending over $200 million in Medicare, you're going to get hit. I think we've seen a shift when talking to smaller companies. I think everybody's waking up to that now.
Interesting. Super stuff. Thank you for sharing. All right, we always enjoy asking here, if you were in charge for a day and could do whatever you wanted to improve our system, what would be your prescription for better access? Lindsay, you want to start?
Big PBM reforms. If I could rule the world, I'd be at the FTC. And I would take the Section 6B study they're doing. I would hurry up with it. That'd be the first thing I'd do.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. I don't know how hard it is to get monopoly data. We have the stats. You got 3 PBMs with 80% market share. We're done. I'd be done with the study. And I would use the extent of the FTC authority to make change. Because I think we're at a place where policymakers are split. They don't know how far to go. There's things going on in the commercial market. It's really hard to get anything done in the commercial market in Congress. You even got Republicans at that point that back off because even though they very much don't like the distortions that are being caused with rebating and all that, they still don't like to tell the commercial market what to do. So I think to have really meaningful change, if I could rule the world, it would be something on the FTC front from PBMs.
All right, that's a big one.
Yeah. So now that Lindsay has solved the PBM issue, I guess
Good.
mine might be, manufacturers could be helping patients so much more from an affordability perspective if they were allowed to in the Medicare program. So you tackle FTC, I'll tackle OIG, and allow us to offer patient assistance in the Medicare program, particularly in the Part D market, because I think, $2,000 is still a lot for many patients.
You're thinking copay system.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, could I follow up because you mentioned earlier that the copay donut hole is shrinking from 7,000 to 2,000, right?
The out-of-pocket is capped.
Yeah.
Donut hole's gone. No more donuts.
Donut hole's gone.
Yep.
The out-of-pocket is going to be capped at 2,000. Is that going to include the medical benefit drugs as well?
No. That is going to be Part D.
Part D.
Yeah.
So typically Part D patients, they're either on an MAPD plan or if they're on traditional Medicare, most of them have a supplemental plan. Most Part B patients are okay out of pocket. It's about 10% of the fee-for-service patients that do need help. So it's a smaller group with you. It's a smaller group though than we think of Part D. It's everybody, but there is that percentage of Part B patients that need help too.
Yeah.
And they haven't been nobody's talked about that at all. Yeah.
Well, that's a large part of the market.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, great. Well, thank you both.
Two big bold recommendations, Mark.
And they're two new ones.
Yeah.
And you can see the influence of Washington because one was the FTC and one was the OIG. Right?
We can take on those guys.
Congress takes too long. Let's get an agency.
Let's get an
I
agency
think we
involved.
got to get an FDA expert in here now.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Expedite drug approvals next.
There you
Okay,
go.
good
There
job.
you go. Well, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
both for joining us. And we appreciate you being here and getting your thoughts. And again, great session. And, appreciate what you're both doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Likewise. Appreciate it.
Scott, this one is exciting. We have Umar Afridi from founder and CEO of Foundation Health has what for me was one of the topics that I couldn't wait to learn more about, right?
Yeah, something new and emerging, and that's part of what we're all about, trying to encourage new ideas.
Well, the session was called From Opaque to Transparent, Transforming the Way We Pay for Drugs, right?
Who could argue with that?
Does that sound like we've been trying to solve that problem for 17 episodes?
Exactly.
So now we have
Maybe
Omar.
this one will do it.
Maybe this one will get there. Omar, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, great.
So we're thrilled. So let's start off with a little bit about your session, and you were invited here. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so the session was all about being bold and thinking about different ways of how we approach problems. So it's looking at what the system looks like today and what it can look like in the future. And I think a lot of it had kind of the general kind of gist of it was like taking a first principle approach to every single problem that exists today, or the systems that exist, and thinking if we were to rebuild it today, what would it look like? And what would be included? Because the system as it exists today, it started as this kind of, when you think about PBMs, it was about lowering costs, and then it's kind of grown from there to this beast of rebates and illogical kind of
misaligned incentives.
Exactly, and it's not the best solution. So the panel was all around how do we think about what the future looks like, and then how do we kind of motivate everyone to be thinking about what you can do in your organization to kind of.
And who else was on the panel with you, Omar?
So it was Allison from Flushio, California. And Ambrovius, I'm going to mispronounce his name, and then Jessica from USC.
Yeah, great.
Well, that's great.
Well, Blue Shield has taken some moves here, recently to try to change things up.
Yeah, I think that's encouraging, right? And, you were asked on the panel because you're, again, the founder and CEO of Foundation Health. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Foundation Health is trying to do to make things more transparent?
Yeah, so Foundation Health, we're a Silicon Valley-based tech company focused on digital health. And essentially what we're building are tools to enable health plans to have a more control over delivery of pharmacy services to their members. So it's essentially, how can you provide the tools to kind of have an option to do something else different than going down the regular path. So it's all about the future and how we want things to be, and then providing the tools today to kind of achieve that vision. And then for drug manufacturers, basically, how do we help them go direct to patients? So we're basically building technology products to kind of help enable that.
Yeah, and with the new program at Blue Shield, do you have a role in that as well?
We don't, not yet. Hopefully in the future, we can help there as well. I think what we want to do is basically look at where the market is going and how can we create a better version of that, right? In any situation, you need pioneers to kind of be the first step. But then you look at steady state and you look at that consumer experience, and basically how can we make that as the best experience as possible and provide the tools to do that. And so that's essentially what we want to do.
So describe that. If I were a patient using your system, what would that look like and feel like for me?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of what was announced with Blue Shield, you've got Amazon Pharmacy, you've got Mark Cuban, and then you've got Opaque on the claim side of things. Now imagine if this was all white labeled and it was just, I don't know, Blue Shield Pharmacy. And when a member logs in, they can see the price for Mark Cuban, they can see Amazon, they can see the insurance. They basically can select the option they want and then go check out. And so it's basically creating everything so that it's all in one place, and an e-commerce like experience. Like everyone is used to kind of Amazon, couple of things, you can get anything, and that's what we want to create. A lot of work goes behind the scenes to kind of achieve that type of experience, and that's essentially what we're building.
Yeah.
Well, and you have a lot of experience. Tell us about your previous role in your previous company.
Previously, I was CEO and founder of TruePill, and so at TruePill we basically started off with an API platform. We helped a lot of companies in the early years go from startup to there's a couple of companies that went into actual public companies. We helped kind of power that. We worked with a lot of startups, but then we also built Optum Store, so we built enterprise products, Mark Cuban Cosmetics Drugstore. So we did a lot of pioneering things in direct-to-consumer digital health. And this is basically a continuation of that, where we focus on the technology to build the best experiences possible across all of digital health. And really it's about bringing everyone together and aligning everyone's incentives and just having everyone work together. And I think one of the biggest problems that exists today in healthcare is that we all work in little silos, and then we communicate with each other with fax machines, and then we're surprised that consumer experience is so bad. And so that's kind of what we're trying to solve. It's like bring everyone together, let's partner, let's work this out so that it's in the best interest of the patient.
But it sounds so easy when Umar says it.
It does.
I mean, I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm like, I'll paint the best picture.
No, I love it. We need more of this, for sure.
As we come off the battleground, with our bruises. And I think if I could though, I just want to turn to the patient side of that, because you mentioned like their ability to see the patient, be more transparent, and see things like that. What do you do about like copays, deductibles, like some of the other aspects of the patient burden?
I mean, right now we have to kind of work within the existing system. So our hope is that as we start giving more and more options, like giving manufacturers the ability to go direct to patient, we can help lower costs. I think there's a lot of learning from other industries that we can apply to healthcare. When you think about the manufacturer, they make a product, and then there's the patient at the end that uses that product. But in our current system, we've got so many middlemen that kind of block the whole experience and add costs and make it expensive. You've got things like PAs where a physician says, this is the medication my patient needs. That comes to the pharmacy, and I remember just working as a pharmacist, kind of seeing, okay, it needs a PA, I'll send it to the doctor. The doctor changes it to something else. So now you have a clinical situation where the doctor's like, this is the medication I need, but it needs a PA, so I'm going to change it to something else. And by going direct, manufacturers can actually have more involvement there, where it's like, okay, patient needs this medication, let's figure out what we need to do to enable the patient to get access to that medication. And so I think over time we'll start seeing more changes happen. You give options and you kind of try to break down this monopoly and provide an alternative option, and we'll start seeing costs come down and improve kind of patient access and affordability. affordability.
Do you have a vision for how you can work your way into the pharmacy benefit so that there can be even broader access of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think right now we're partnering with everyone, so we
Yeah.
want to work with all the transplant PBMs. So like there's Opaque, SmithRx, Brightway, Capital-Rx. Like we want to work with those guys and kind of incorporate that into our product as an offering. And then I think their incentives are aligned. They don't have a pharmacy that they have to send prescriptions to and make a spread on, and so they want to work to lower costs. They want to provide better experiences to the end patient. And so I think once you bring together all the right people that need to be together and everyone's kind of working towards the same goal, that's when you can start to see more innovative kind of solutions.
Yeah.
Today we kind of work within an existing system, but the aim is like bring all these smart guys together in companies and figure out a solution that solves the problem.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so if I could then, you mentioned the manufacturers going direct, and I know that the Lilly program came out with that. Can you share with our audience some perspective on the value for the Lilly Direct program and why other manufacturers might go that direction?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think one, it makes it very easy for patients to get access to medication. I think when you think about the next generation of patients or people wanting to do it, they want to be able to access their healthcare in the same way they access everything else. You think about retail with Amazon, couple of clicks, Uber, you can get taxi 24/7. They want healthcare to be that accessible, and I think there's this convenience has been kind of redefined. Like previously, it was like, when you think about the retail chains, it was like have a pharmacy within 2 miles of every American. Now it's like people want a home delivery. They want an easy access. They don't want to have to take a whole day from work to go to the doctor, the pharmacy, and figure all this out. They want that to be easy as possible. So that's one thing. From a drug manufacturer perspective, they can build a relationship directly with that patient and make sure that they get the medication they need and they get access to it. They can provide all the educational information, all the wraparound care. They can help with copays. They can do all of that directly. They can also have access to all the data to make sure patients get the care that they need. So it solves a lot of the costs that come into the system where manufacturers buying data downstream. They're trying to kind of they outsource a lot of things to middlemen along the way, whereas this way they can go direct. So I think definitely this is the way that, obviously not for all medications, but for the ones where it's applicable, I think this makes a lot of sense. And you can combine the in-person with the telehealth. It doesn't have to be telehealth. You can still get that same benefit. And then I think from a cost perspective, and being able to go direct helps you cut out distribution fees, all of the rebates or whatever else that exists, and you can then sell the product at a much lower price point than you do today. Because manufacturers today are including the rebates that they have to pay into the price that they have to sell to. And so going direct allows them to, gives them the option anyway, to come to market at a lower price point that's more affordable from a cash pay perspective.
That could be a whole other podcast.
It was, it reminds me Victor Bolto, when we spoke with him, he was talking about some of the differences in the cost structure of doing business in the U.S. versus Europe, for example, where they've got another system, lower price, but then broader access. And here we're kind of the reverse. We have a lot of friction in the war of all against all built into the system. It costs a lot to navigate that, and it all has to be priced in to the starting point on the drug.
And here we are at Asembia, and several of their keynote speakers today embrace this concept around consumerism. I'm sure you were there as well, right? That
was the whole thesis around when we built TruePill, was that healthcare is going to become more consumer focused, and so you need consumer-like experiences in order to keep up with what the next generation wants and what people want today. They don't, like every other industry is now a tech company. Like banks are primarily tech companies. You interact through phones, and healthcare is this clunkiness of go pick up a CD-ROM from somewhere with your MRI and then take it over to somewhere else, and they'll fax over the information. So it's it hasn't kept up, and I think that's what we're trying to solve. It's bring everyone together and just make it as seamless as possible.
Well, I think you've already led into the final question for us, which is what would, given the opportunity to sort of start all over and create something brand new. I know you already are, so why don't you tell us your prescription for better access?
Yeah, I think it is this concept of consumerization. When patients have choice, they have access, and it starts from the bottom up. So it's kind of like transparency, rebuilding everything with patient-centric approach, and keeping that in mind. I think Amazon does its best where they start with the consumer and they work backwards, and how do you drive that better experience? And that's what we've always done, where it's the consumer, the patient at the end, and how can you deliver a 10x better experience across the board?
Yeah.
So access, pricing, outcomes, and then work backwards from that to rebuild everything. And I think it is using technology at its core to make sure that you connect all the pieces and just give the best experience possible to the consumers. You can decrease the friction, hopefully increase adherence, clinical outcomes, and everything. So that's our approach at Foundation Health.
Great. Well,
We're looking forward to that.
yeah, exactly. And again, an exciting session. So thank you for coming to Asembia. Thank you for being here. And
Thanks so much.
thank you for joining us on the podcast.
That's us. Thank you.
Scott, another great guest. You want to tell us about who we have?
Yeah, happy to, Mark. So we got with us now Joe Boswell, a longtime industry veteran, knowledgeable about lots of different areas actually. Has worked for pharma manufacturers, but also a major consulting group. Now he's got his own firm, and he can tell us a bit about that. And moreover, he's president of a new and growing, important international access professional society. So lots of things here we can talk about with Joe.
Great. Joe, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So what brings you to Asembia?
So I've been going to, as Scott said, I've been in the industry a long time, and I've been going to conferences for an awfully long time. So I started coming to Asembia back when it was Armada a few years ago, and it was much, much smaller than this.
Right.
And at that time, the old ones that I also get to, like I was at AMCP last week, and I'll be at ISPOR next week.
Yeah.
I was at, this has just eclipsed them all. So what brings me to Asembia today, and has for the last several years, is that this is the place where everyone across the healthcare stakeholders, from manufacturers to the service industry and whatnot, are all here. And it's a great place to connect with the right people.
Yeah, great networking in addition to the great sessions and all the exhibitions and everything.
Right.
They have.
No,
And then there's the sessions, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
It has it all. So tell us a little bit about sort of what you're doing, about Access Forum, and
And GenMap.
So I'll start with GenMap. So, I left on, Scott said, I came up through industry. I was with J&J for a number of years. I was with Wyatt Hearst. And then I ended my last, my career working for somebody with ADVI Health, where I went from working for different operating companies to working for all the operating companies. And really seeing inside the kimono of these various companies and seeing threads that run through, that are cross-cutting across all companies and the industry writ large. And so I set up my own advisory firm in digital health firm called GenMap. And as MAP has a market access value. And while we have the advisory services helping our clients get better and more intentional evidence and value propositions, from early stage all the way through end of life cycle, actually. But the earlier the better, of course. My real focus is on patient engagement and how do we create better patients. The industry, we've been talking about patient centricity forever. And everybody says, the patient's at the center, but if you're really honest, very few really do it well. And I think that's the one, like the holy grail is, if all the planets align and we get the product into the patient's hands and it doesn't get switched at the pharmacy and it's paid for, then it goes into this black box. Like, what happens? Does the patient take it on time? Do they take it in the right way? Do they do the non-pharmacologic things that are going to help them truly be better patients and really enhance the likelihood of whatever therapy they're on actually working? And so that's what we're focusing on. And so we're working on collaborating with several companies right now to actually do tests and learns to actually for the proof of concept. But we think we're onto something big for that. So on the, on my side,
I'm excited about this. become familiar with Access Forum here recently myself, and I think it has a lot of potential, Joe.
I couldn't agree more. And this is something that, like I said, I've been to all the conferences, and for many, many years, ISPOR was one of the bigger ones that I went to. And even though there are conferences like Asembia where market access people meet and congregate, there's really never been a voice or a home, if you will, for a society, if you will, for access folks. And when we say access, it's not just market access, it's also patient access.
Right.
Yeah.
And I say that intentionally because, you can get into whatever territory, you can get up on whatever formulary, but if it doesn't end up in the hands of that patient, the right patient at the right time, then,
you
isn't
haven't
really
solved it all.
Right.
Exactly.
So let's turn real quick to some of the things you're seeing in the market, and then we want to get to your prescription for better access. So
Sure.
what are some of the biggest barriers you're seeing from your career, or in terms of what you're seeing these days with your clients, and even from the Access Forum group? Like, what are the things that you're tracking?
Well, I think there are a few things. One of them is certainly cost, and the one thing that I've seen across the board, across industry for many years is on the one hand, you have the industry that's creating and trying to, obviously make as much as they can or preserve what they're doing, hold up their products. On the other side, you've got all of these conditions that are driving healthcare, and in the last several years, companies have leaned ever more into rare disease, oncology,
small populations,
and small populations, very expensive populations, the one that used to enjoy unfettered access.
Yeah.
But that's not always going to be, and it's always gotten a lot tighter, and it's going to continue to get tighter.
Yeah.
And what the big aha for me, Mark, was when we did some analysis when I was at ADVI, when we looked at all the drugs that are in the pipeline at the FDA right now in rare disease.
Yeah.
And if they all hit the market tomorrow, they would literally bankrupt the system, because we can't afford to pay for those. And Scott, you and I talked early on, when you're in Novartis, just like, we have to do something different.
Right.
And it's not one company can't do it.
Yeah.
One consultant can't do it. One government official. And for me, it was always like, if the industry, and I say that not just the manufacturers, but all the different stakeholders, not bedfellows, don't proffer some very real and innovative solutions in terms of how we're going about doing this, the government's going to do it for us.
Right.
So do you have your view on that? What would be your prescription for better access, Joe?
It would be, the main thing would be improve, faster, better, more innovative. Everything from how do you generate evidence and value to preserve your value, to defend your value. But then how do you pick the right patients and make sure that whether it's through precision medicine, companion diagnostic things that you can check whether or not things are going to work on a specific patient or not.
Right.
I think that would help you get to the right patients, as well as make sure the system is paying for the right products.
Right.
So that's one thing, and then the other thing would be like more innovative financing strategies writ large.
Yeah.
Right.
How do we get better with value-based
arrangements
and things like that?
Right.
That makes sense. Not just to have them.
Yeah.
Because not every therapeutic area is works in that area.
No, but I think that's a larger theme, that manufacturers are willing to take more responsibility for their products, right? They're willing to take more risk.
They are, but the one thing that's missing with these, and this goes back to the patient engagement piece, is like, so how do you manage that?
Right.
How do you improve your real world evidence that you're getting to figure out what's really happening in your patients' lives when they're not, that you're not getting through claims analysis.
Yeah.
So there's some big holes that need to be filled, which could help with that.
Some opportunities.
There is.
Huge opportunities, and I think there's got to be a revolution really in our industry with how we approach these things. And I'm hopeful, though, very hopeful that we can do this, and which brings me back really just to end this out with Access Forum. The whole crux of this is really to bring all of these voices together, not just to be a society, but really to how do we solve this?
Right.
How do we attack these, and how do we come together? Because I think there's a lot of different things we can do better. as an industry, and I think we actually had a very real opportunity to do more impact on care delivery and access writ large than any single company or executive could have. So I'm very excited.
I think that's sort of one of the benefits of Asembia, right? I mean, the fact that we're all here together. This is one place where we can all begin. And like you're saying with Access Forum, like I know that's a more targeted audience. And so, it's going to take, revolutions don't happen without a lot of people sort of pulling together. And so
it really doesn't, and in fact, we are looking to. I mean, it's part of my vision to actually collaborate with some of these other groups, because we are not, in no way competitive. We're all playing for the same team, looking for the same end goals, right? So I'm heading off to Isport actually to talk to them about.
There we go. Well, we're thrilled you stopped by. So, Joe, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Enjoy the rest of the conference and good luck.
All right,
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Sure.
Thanks.